Captain Torrance is gearing up for another flight when his phone rings. It's his daughter, and they share a warm, heartfelt chat about their plans for Christmas. With a smile, Captain Torrance promises they'll have an amazing time once he's back. Boarding the plane, he meets his co-pilot, Deli, who hails from Hong Kong. The two exchange friendly greetings and settle into their roles for the journey ahead. As they're getting ready, Bonnie, one of the flight attendants, approaches Captain Torrance. She informs him that his attention is needed in the cabin. Captain Torrance heads over and meets a police officer who introduces himself. But the officer isn't alone. He's here with a prisoner, a man convicted of murder. Immediately alert, the captain instructs the officer to keep this dangerous passenger isolated from everyone else on board. Afterward, he lets all the flight attendants know, making sure they understand the importance of keeping everyone safe. As the passengers settle into their seats, the flight attendants move down the aisle, making sure everyone is buckled up and ready. In the cockpit, Captain Torrance activates the flight controls and addresses the passengers, reassuring them of a smooth journey ahead. Once cleared for takeoff, he guides the plane down the runway and into the air. But soon a massive storm looms, casting a shadow over the plane. Turbulence hits hard, and the passengers grip their armrests, fear spreading among them. The captain hands the controls to Deli and steps into the cabin, aiming to calm everyone down. Suddenly, lightning strikes, sending a jolt through the aircraft. The powerful blast fries the avionics, cutting off power and communication with air traffic control. Now they're flying blind in a raging storm. As the crew struggles to stay calm, they switch to manual navigation, their only option with just 10 minutes of battery life left. The atmosphere in the cabin is tense, and amid the chaos, the police officer's phone slips out of his hand. Ignoring the flight attendant's warnings, he reaches for it, but a sudden lurch causes him to collapse, leaving him lifeless. With just seconds to spare, they finally spot land through the storm. Captain Torrance and Deli manage a daring landing on an unknown island. As soon as they touch down, the captain urgently orders everyone off the plane. Bonnie retrieves the cuff keys from the fallen officer, ensuring all passengers disembark. They step out, shaken and exhausted, with two of their own lost in the chaos. As the sun rises, Bonnie hands the cuff keys to Captain Torrance. He gathers everyone together. Phones out but dead, no signal, no hope of immediate rescue. But he steps forward, addressing the group with a determined tone, assuring them he'll find a way to get them back home and keep them safe. Back at headquarters, David Scarsdale, a corporate strategist and crisis manager, is introduced, jumping into action as news of the missing flight reaches him. Meanwhile on the island, Captain Torrance gathers the passengers, encouraging everyone to share any food or water they have. He and Deli head back to inspect the plane for repairs, while Bonnie lets Torrance know the plane is fully unloaded, except for the bodies of those who didn't survive. Somberly, Torrance covers the deceased and takes the police officer's gun. Among the passengers, someone starts recording a video of the aftermath, capturing the harrowing reality they now face. Using a manual map, Torrance and Deli identify their location: Jolo Island. Deli's face grows grim as he explains that the island is notoriously dangerous, controlled by local terrorists with no police presence. Back at HQ, David Scarsdale digs deeper, urgently questioning the weather team about the plane's last maintenance and anyone who recently serviced it. Meanwhile on the island, Torrance delivers the grim news to the passengers, explaining just how dangerous their situation is. Anxiety ripples through the group, but he steps in, calming them as best he can. With few options left, Torrance makes a bold decision. He uncuffs Gaspar, the prisoner, asking him to join on a risky trek to locate a radio station to contact HQ. Somewhere nearby, a local villager approaches Datu, the local leader, and after exchanging a few words and some money, leaves with a purpose. As Torrance and Gaspar trek through the dense jungle, the two share a tense conversation. Gaspar opens up, saying he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, leading to his murder charge. The prisoner glances at Torrance and asks if he brought the officer's gun, but Torrance remains silent. Just as Torrance looks away for a moment, Gaspar vanishes into the trees. Torrance hesitates, looking around, then grudgingly presses on alone. Back at HQ, Scarsdale is still on the case, now digging into Captain Torrance's background, determined to get every detail as they race against time to bring the passengers home safely. Deli stays back to work on the plane, and after some effort, he successfully restores power. Meanwhile, Captain Torrance has reached a nearby building and spots an old radio inside. He quickly fixes it, managing to make a call to Trailblazer Airlines, reporting their location in Jolo Island, Sulu Sea. But the responder doubts him, thinking it's a prank, and asks for his badge number. Torrance realizes he didn't bring it, and just then the radio cuts off. Determined, Torrance makes a second attempt, this time calling his daughter Daniela. He tells her to grab something to write on, and gives her the island details, urging her to take them to Trailblazer. Suddenly, an attacker sneaks up behind him, striking Torrance hard. He fights back, desperately reaching for his gun but unable to get it. He's forced into a brutal hand-to-hand struggle and eventually overpowers his attacker, choking him until he goes still. Just then, a gunshot rings out, startling him. It's Gaspar who hands Torrance a bottle of water. Torrance explains he was able to reach his daughter, but isn't confident they'll be rescued due to the breach in communication. Gaspar hands him a gun and they move on. Meanwhile, back at the village, Datu receives word of the plane crash and sends out his men. Gaspar leads Torrance to where he found weapons, pointing out the bodies of the men he took them from. They come across a room with blood splattered on the walls and a video camera lying on the floor. They play back the recording and watch a woman, kidnapped by the villagers, begging for her life with a ransom demand. Realizing the severity of the situation, Torrance and Gaspar rush out to find the passengers, using the dead men's vehicle. As they approach, the passengers spot the incoming cars and start waving, thinking help has arrived. Deli quickly warns them to step back, not knowing who's coming. In a terrifying moment, the locals fire shots into the air, silencing everyone. Gaspar brakes hard as they hear the gunshot, and they watch as Datu's men demand the passengers list. Bonnie, frightened, hands it over. The locals call out names one by one, taking control of the group. When Deli mentions that Captain Torrance went to look for help, the locals grow suspicious. As tensions rise, a woman tries to flee, but they shoot her down. Her husband's grief is short-lived as they kill him as well. The remaining passengers are ordered onto a bus taken hostage. Torrance, watching from a distance, is filled with anger. Ignoring Gaspar's attempts to hold him back, he decides to act. Spotting two men left behind to gather belongings, Torrance and Gaspar quickly approach them. Gaspar shoots one, while Torrance grabs the other, demanding to know where the passengers are being taken. The man reveals they're being transported to a warehouse by the coast awaiting further instructions. Back at Trailblazers headquarters, they replay Torrance's message, confirming what Daniela reported about his location. Torrance heads back to the plane where he sees Deli has managed to get the power back on. Gaspar deals with the remaining villager as Torrance scrawls a message on his shirt: passengers hostage, warehouse by coast. With the coordinates now confirmed, Scarsdale sends in the advanced crew, while Torrance and Gaspar drives to the coast. Torrance and Gaspar leave the car and set off on foot, determined to reach the village undetected. The locals forcefully pull the passengers out, making each one state their name and country as they're filmed on camera. Meanwhile, David Scarsdale's rescue team finally reaches Jolo but reports back, saying they found no one. One of the rescuers boards the empty plane, finding the bodies left behind. Searching further, he discovers the note Captain Torrance scrawled on his shirt, showing it to the team at headquarters. Elsewhere, Gaspar and Torrance observe the villagers fueling up a boat preparing to transport the hostages. Moving stealthily, they take down each villager in their path without making a sound. Approaching the warehouse, Gaspar picks up a massive hammer and uses it to eliminate a guard, allowing Torrance to search the man for keys to the warehouse. They manage to unlock the door, setting the passengers free. Captain Torrance quickly ushers everyone toward a bus, while Gaspar scouts the area and notices armed men blocking their escape route. Realizing they can't just drive past them, Torrance volunteers to be a decoy, counting on the fact that the captors won't kill him since he's the pilot. The passengers watch in shock as Torrance approaches the guards, introducing himself as Captain Torrance. The men begin to beat him, but Torrance insists he needs to speak to Datu. Datu appears, questioning Torrance about any rescue attempts. Torrance admits that help is on the way and demands the release of his passengers. Unimpressed, Datu orders his men to rough him up further, laughing off Torrance's demand. Just as one of Datu's men is about to shoot Torrance, a bullet pierces the air, taking the man down. Chaos erupts as shots are fired from all directions. Amid the confusion, the advanced crew team hustles Torrance onto the bus and they all pile in, speeding off. Inside the bus, the rescue team informs them that a full rescue will take 24 hours. They've brought cash to negotiate their way out, but the amount is insufficient to secure safe passage through the island. Amid the tension, Daniela records a message for her father, expressing her love and urging him to come home. The bus pulls to a halt, and Captain Torrance steps out, facing the passengers. He explains that their best shot at survival is to fly the repaired plane out themselves, warning that the Jolo militia will come in full force well before the rescue team arrives. Though fearful, the passengers reluctantly agree, and Torrance reassures them that they'll be safe. The advanced crew urges everyone to move, cautioning that they have just 2 minutes before the enemy catches up. As the passengers hurriedly board the plane, Captain Torrance notices that the brakes need fixing. Before he can address it, the Jolo villagers arrive, opening fire and hitting one of the passengers. An intense gunfight breaks out as both the villagers and advanced crew exchange shots. Taking control of the comms from the advanced crew, Torrance warns them they'll have 2 minutes once the engines start. Torrance bids Gaspar good luck, knowing he won't be joining them since he's still considered a prisoner. As Torrance runs back toward the plane, a bullet hits his leg, but he pushes through the pain, limping his way inside. Quickly, he checks the plane's essentials as two members of the advanced crew board returning fire from within. Meanwhile, Gaspar runs out of bullets and asks one of the crew to check their bags for more ammo. As he searches, he finds bundles of cash, stunned by the amount. Taking only the reload he needs, he leaves the money behind. Back on the plane, Captain Torrance begins taxiing, with villagers firing wildly as the plane moves down the runway. The advanced crew inside keeps returning fire to hold them off. Using the comms, Torrance contacts headquarters, asking for navigation assistance as they're flying manually without radar. He then calls for the advanced crew to jump on board. Gaspar seizes his chance to grab a bundle of cash and slips away. The villagers pursue the plane, trying to block its path. Just as one of the villagers prepares to launch a grenade, Gaspar appears, shooting him from behind and stopping the threat. Datu, enraged, fires randomly, desperate to stop the plane. Just as he's about to use his grenade launcher, Torrance accelerates and lifts off, crushing Datu and his truck under the plane's wheels. Gaspar makes his escape into the jungle as the plane narrowly takes off. In a last-ditch effort, the villagers don't relent and continue firing, managing to damage the right engine. Torrance struggles to keep control, speaking with headquarters and asking them to find an emergency landing spot as the plane's systems falter. Headquarters directs Captain Torrance to the nearest airfields, with Siassi being the closest option. As they lose altitude rapidly, Torrance catches sight of the Siassi airfield and announces to the passengers to brace for landing. With strained focus, he navigates the damaged plane towards the ground, making a rough but successful landing. As the plane skids to a halt, Torrance lets out a heavy breath, overwhelmed by the ordeal. The passengers, relieved and grateful, break into applause, thanking him for his bravery. One by one they disembark, with Captain Torrance and Deli sharing a heartfelt farewell. Bonnie approaches Torrance and gives him a warm hug, a silent acknowledgement of his leadership and courage. After everyone has left, Torrance sits alone inside the empty plane, reflecting on the intense journey they all endured. He exits the plane and sits on the staircase, pulling out his phone to call his daughter. With a voice full of relief, he reassures her that he's coming home. If you enjoyed this recap and want more thrilling movie recaps like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You'll be the first to catch all the latest uploads. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.